Here is a subject not often talked about and considered a piece of hidden history, so let's put it into perspective. Child marriage, a practice where one or both spouses are under the age of 18, has been a common custom throughout history, spanning across various cultures, religions, and continents. This practice has deep historical roots and has been influenced by a variety of factors, including economic, political, and social norms. In ancient civilizations, such as Egypt and Rome, child marriages were not uncommon. For example, in ancient Rome, it was customary for girls to marry shortly after reaching puberty, around the age of 12. Similarly, in ancient Egypt, girls were often married soon after they reached puberty, which was seen as a sign of their readiness for marriage. Here is some notable examples from the ancient and classical eras to the early medieval period. Emperor Nero of Rome and Claudia Octavia. Nero, around 16 at the time, married his stepsister Claudia Octavia, who was about 13 or 14, in 53 AD. Tutankhamun of Egypt and Ankhesenamun. Tutankhamun, the famous Egyptian pharaoh, married his half-sister Ankhesenamun when they were both children around the ages of 8 to 10, Emperor Charlemagne and Hildegard. Hildegard was around 13 years old when she married Charlemagne, who was in his late 20s, in 771. During the medieval era, child marriage was prevalent in Europe as well as in the Islamic world. European nobility often used child marriages as a means to forge alliances, secure political power, or consolidate wealth. Girls from noble families were often betrothed at a very young age and married by their early teens. In the Islamic world, child marriage was also practiced, partly influenced by local customs and partly by interpretations of religious texts. The marriage of Aisha, one of the Prophet Muhammad's wives who was betrothed to him at a young age, is a well-known example. Here are some notable medieval marriages: Charles VIII of France and Anne of Brittany. Anne was 14 years old when she married Charles, who was 21 in 1491. Margaret Beaufort and Edmund Tudor. Margaret Beaufort, mother of Henry VII, was about 12 years old when she married Edmund Tudor, who was 24, in 1455. Mary, Queen of Scots, and Francis II of France. Mary was 15 years old when she married Francis, who was 14, in 1558. King Richard II of England and Isabella of Valois. Isabella was only 6 years old when she was betrothed to King Richard II, who was 29 in 1396. They married when she was 7. King John of England and Isabella of Angoulême. Isabella was about 12 years old when she married King John, who was 34 in 1200. During the Renaissance and Enlightenment periods, attitudes towards child marriage began to shift slightly in Europe, influenced by changing views on childhood and adolescence. However, child marriages, especially among the nobility and in rural areas, continued to be fairly common. Examples: Margaret of Austria and John of Aragon. Margaret was betrothed at 3 and married at 12 to John, Prince of Asturias, the son of Ferdinand II of Aragon, and Isabella I of Castile in 1497. Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI of France. Marie Antoinette was 14 years old when she married the future king, who was 15 in 1770, Pedro II of Portugal and Maria Sophia of Neuburg. Maria Sophia was 16 when she married Pedro, who was 53 in 1687. Pocahontas and John Rolfe. Pocahontas was around 1718 when she married John Rolfe, who was in his late 20s in 1614. Henry Benedict Stuart, Cardinal Duke of York, and Maria Clementina Sobieska. Maria Clementina was 16 when she married Henry Benedict, who was 31 in 1719. In the 19th and 20th centuries, with the rise of the women's rights movement and increased emphasis on children's rights, there was a gradual shift against the practice of child marriage in many Western countries. Laws raising the minimum age of marriage were enacted in Europe and America. However, child marriage remained prevalent in many parts of the world, including Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, where it was intertwined with local customs and traditions. The reasons for child marriage have varied over time and place. In many instances, it was driven by economic factors, such as poverty or the desire to secure financial alliances between families. Social norms and expectations also played a significant role. In some cultures, marrying off a girl at a young age was seen as a way to ensure her chastity and protect the family honor. Today, child marriage is recognized as a human rights violation. International bodies like the United Nations have actively campaigned against it, emphasizing its detrimental effects on education, health, and the overall well-being of children, particularly girls. Despite these efforts, the practice persists in some regions, often driven by the same historical factors of tradition, poverty, and social norms. Understanding the history of child marriage is crucial to comprehend its complex roots and the challenges involved in its eradication. This practice, deeply embedded in historical, cultural, and economic contexts, requires a multifaceted approach for its elimination, involving legal reforms, education, and changes in societal attitudes.